Welcome everyone back to the second episode in the series where I'll be exploring what evolutionary astrology is and how to read your chart from that perspective. So if you missed the first video, you can go back and take a look at what does it mean to have a relationship with your birth chart from an evolutionary astrology perspective. But in that video, we talked about the fact that you start with Pluto, and that's what today is going to be about. So what we'll do is we'll talk about what Pluto represents. I'll explain to you how to read your Pluto. We'll even talk about Pluto in some of the signs and give you some examples of some celebrities you know to help you get a bit of an idea of how this works. So let's just begin with what does Pluto represent? So you can think of Pluto as what your soul is wanting to experience in this lifetime. And when we say experience, we mean what sort of themes and soul issues your soul is exploring. So it's learning something. It comes into this life having had very similar experiences in past lives, and your soul chooses to incarnate in this life to further explore the themes and experiences that are symbolized by your particular Pluto placement. And as we explained last week, your South Node and your South Node ruler go on to explain in more fine detail for how that will look for you. But today we're just starting with Pluto. So you're very familiar with your Pluto on one hand, because as we say, these are experiences you've already had in other lifetimes. So you feel it very viscerally, but it of course will manifest slightly differently in this lifetime. So you can see your Pluto from 2 points of view. One is these sort of deeper themes that you are grappling with and trying to explore in this lifetime. And then you can see it on a more immediate level, how you've actually experienced it day to day or in large moments in your life. So what we'll do is get started with what Pluto means in some of the signs. So with Pluto in some of the signs, I'm not going to go through all of them because for many Pluto placements, we don't have people of that generation alive today. So basically, we have people from the Cancer generation through to the Capricorn generation, but even in the Capricorn generation, it is most of these people are being born or are children. So if you're listening to this, you're probably somewhere in between. So obviously these are generational themes, but they give a flavor to your particular house placement, and I'll talk about that next. But the flavor or overarching themes that come from each of these signs can be thought of in this way. So if we think of Pluto in Cancer, then we're looking at themes to do with emotional security, emotional dependence, what it means to find your emotional well-being within yourself. If we move on to the Leo generation, we're looking at exploring themes of what does it mean to feel special, to feel you have a special destiny, or to feel that you want to be seen and acknowledged for your talents or your creativity. What does it mean to have a creativity burning inside you that you want to show to the world, and the impacts of that. If we then move on to the Virgo generation, this is themes of exploring, basically of really feeling what it means to feel really unworthwhile, or that there is something lacking, something in you that you really need to perfect. It can be a challenging thing to explore. And along with that goes themes of being like victimized or perpetually, the role of a servant and things like that. But basically it's looking at wanting to perfect yourself because underlying that, you think that there is fundamentally something that is flawed within you that needs to be improved before your life can improve. Looking now at the Libra generation. This is a generation who are exploring themes of what is projected onto them from others in relationships. All kinds of relationships, not just partnerships. So what we're looking at here is the balance, or usually the imbalance, that is existing between yourself and the other individuals that you encounter in this lifetime, and the way that you change who you are to try to keep the relationship in a sort of balance, even though that balance will generally be you're either have the upper hand or you're at the lower end. So you can think of it very much like what it means to be on a seesaw that is constantly moving in and out of balance at all times. So it's really the cycles of that. And the way that you end up being on that seesaw is because you're looking to find out who you are through the prism of looking at other people, the other person on the seesaw. And so that leaves things to be out of balance, and it allows this sense of having things projected onto you. Moving on to the Scorpio generation. These people in this generation are really exploring what it means to feel, or have to have power, or probably more likely to, feel very powerless. So these things can be explored again, mostly through relationships with other people, but also in any situation that you find yourself in, to explore powerlessness, betrayal, your ability to trust, your ability to get close to people, your ability to let people in, to become vulnerable. All of these things are themes that you're exploring in this lifetime in one way or another. And then looking at the Sagittarius generation, this is looking at themes around what do you believe, where do you get your beliefs from, how do you access your truth, how do you know what is true, how do you follow your intuition. Is your intuition loud, or do you just ignore it and follow what you've been taught? Where do you get your knowledge from? What does it mean to even have knowledge? All of these sorts of themes. And a lot of this can then come from your culture of origin, or your religion of origin, or it can just be your culture of origin, can simply be your family. So it's really about exploring your belief structure in this lifetime. Where did you get it from, and how does it impact your life? We can also talk about the Capricorn generation, even though, as I said, they are children, but they are exploring in this lifetime, and I think you can see a lot of them being born into that right now. What it means to belong to society. What does it mean to be born into a system of rules and regulations, and other people potentially projecting their authority onto you and having to live under a type of authority. So what does that all mean? What does it mean to live perhaps in a patriarchy? What does it mean to give your power away or claim it for yourself? Who gets to be the authority of your life, you or other people? What does it mean to live with a lot of rules, or what does it mean to live with no rules? So it's all of these sorts of themes. And we won't go into the Aquarius generation and so on, because we're not there yet. So then what do you do? So you'll be belonging to one of these generations, and you can find out which one by looking at your birth chart. But what's more important is which house it is in, because the way that we read Pluto is first of all looking at the house themes. And I'm not going to go through all 12 houses today. Rather, I'll give you some examples through celebrities that we'll talk about. But basically the way that the process works, and you can try this with your own chart, is you look at the themes that your house would represent. And of course, let's say you have anything from house 4 to 10. We've kind of talked about those themes a little bit already. So you already have an idea of some of the houses. you take those themes and then you look at the way that the sign, Scorpio, Virgo, whichever, would impact those themes. So it takes quite a bit of time to really meditate on this and get it right. And remember, we'll be looking at it from two perspectives, from the really deeper subconscious level, like really what overarching themes are you bringing in, but also how you experience it in this lifetime. So I think a few examples will really help you figure out what I mean. So I'll talk about myself first, even though I'm not a celebrity and you don't know much about my life, but just to give you an idea. So for me, I'm the Libra generation and my Pluto's in the 9th house. So we've already talked about Libra and also Sagittarius. So on a deeper level, I can definitely relate to the way that I experience, the way that beliefs and ideas, I feel that they are projected onto me. So often when other people give me like their opinions about something, or I read an opinion, or I read a point of view, or something like that, my brain doesn't immediately kick into gear and think, but what do I think about that? And for some people that would be natural, they would always think that way. But for me personally, the way I experience is I read something, I listen to somebody, and I take it on as true before examining whether it is true. So this is like this underlying theme, which really affects a lot of my life ultimately, is exploring that. So my lifetime is really about exploring the extent to which these beliefs that I take from other people, how they impact me. And how that will mean I'll be able to become my own individual self. From a more everyday perspective, I've for sure experienced the projected expectations that have come from my cultural background, with my father being Italian and from southern Italy, and what has come with that. And also that, but growing up not in Italy, but in Australia. So I've really had this, this look at a clash of cultures. What does it mean to belong to a culture in the first place? What do the beliefs of that culture have to do if they're planted in another culture? All of these sorts of things. And what does it mean if you feel like you are living under the expectations of a culture? How do you find your own way? How do you find out who you want to be? So hopefully that illustrates how you can sort of find this on both levels, how you're experiencing it very tangibly, and also what are the deeper themes that you're exploring. For our first celebrity, I wanted to talk about Princess Diana, who I think it's very interesting if you learn about her chart, especially because there's a lot of documentaries available for you to easily watch. And if you've been interested in The Crown or anything like that, you might be interested to find out more about Princess Diana. Her Pluto placement is in the 8th house in Virgo. So she's of the Virgo generation. And again, these are two placements that we've already spoken about. So let's see how we do this blending together of the themes. So we start with the house, and from the house perspective, she's having a lifetime, and she's coming from other lifetimes, of exploring what power means, what it means to have power, to be empowered, what it means to feel powerless, and having a look at that. Okay, also, of course, and I mean, if you know anything about her story, you can be saying, okay, we're also looking at what it means to be betrayed, what it means to be stabbed in the back. But these are more at that tangible, visceral level. Like the underlying theme, the grander theme is power and powerlessness. And then when we look at Virgo, we think, okay, how is power and powerlessness impacted by Virgo? How is it impacted by feeling like there is something within you that needs constant perfection? So if you think about the way that could come together, you could see that you would always feel like you are not at a point where you can be empowered, because first you need to fix something in yourself. So that's one way. You could feel like there's a constant struggle to really claim your power because you feel like there's something inherently wrong with you. So there's a lot of healing to do. Or you could feel like that there is, you can't access the power that is rightfully yours because you haven't done enough work on yourself yet, or it's not for you, or because you feel like you're a victim and that's why you can't access your power. Of course, this is from the point of view of Diana. I mean, those archetypes could be flipped another way, where someone could be claiming power in a way that is in a Virgo way. Like they could be projecting a lot of guilt and blame on other people, and taking their power back in their own way. So of course, it's not always going to be everybody's has it in this negative way. But for most of us who are interested in astrology, we've come into a lifetime and from past lives of experiences of this being quite challenging. Like we're on the lower end and we're trying to come into our power. On a more tangible and visceral level, we can see that Princess Diana really experienced powerlessness as a servant. Like she was a public servant in the end, and a lot of her power was taken away, especially in the beginning. Even though she also learned to come into her power as a public servant as well. Even more tangibly and viscerally, Princess Diana suffered from bulimia. So you can see the themes of purging and purification. Purging to purify, 8th house and Virgo. So we're looking at purging is a very Scorpio thing, and purification is this Virgo theme. Like you can see it very literally in her lifetime. So it really exists on multiple layers. So hopefully that gives you an idea of how we are trying to put this together. Let's also take a look at Lady Gaga's chart. Just trying to give you a few people from different generations and having a look at some different overlays. So Lady Gaga's Pluto is in the 5th house, Scorpio. So we have already talked about Scorpio, but it's still a good one to look at because it's a little bit different. So starting with the 5th house, these are the sort of Leo things we discussed. So what does it mean to have creative, something, to be very creative, or to have some creativity you want to express? Or what does it mean to want to be seen? What does it mean to want to be acknowledged as special? And I think for Lady Gaga, we can see that, of course, she comes into this life with a lot of talent. And she comes into this life with something creative that she wants to give. From there, we can look at the Scorpio theme. So how does power and search for power or powerlessness and those sorts of things, how does that interact with these 5th house themes? So I think for Lady Gaga, we can see that, I mean, for some people, it might be that we're looking at, okay, so we could say that, okay, let's say we don't know who the person is, that their need to be seen makes them like power hungry, for example, okay? Or that the way that their need to be seen is impacted by power is they will do anything and they will be submissive, or they will do what someone says just to be seen. And I think we can see that that doesn't really seem to be the case with Lady Gaga. So for hers, what is it more about? She has this creativity within her. What does that mean in terms of Scorpio themes? So I think we can see here, and also her South Node is here. So she has a double strength of this as well. But if you have something that you need to share from your innermost self, something very creative, a talent that you need to share, how can the need to merge with other people, to commit to that, to bond with that, to be vulnerable through your art, what sort of experiences is that in this lifetime? So I think for her, we can see that on a fundamental level, but also very tangibly in her life. The themes are still to do with these themes, but they of course manifest in a very unique way, as they do for all of us. And hers is a lifetime of looking at, okay, so when you are vulnerable enough to express yourself and to be your most creative self, then what? Where does that lead? Where does that go? So it's not about just looking at, you just do that and you just sing and you are a performer and you do all of that and then you gain great power. And then what? What do you do with that? So, and I think you can see that in Lady Gaga's life. She's exactly exploring that because, and we'll talk about that in other videos, she goes on to take this power that she has and put it towards something other than herself and other than just the continual perpetuation of her art. She's directing it in another direction. Okay, so she has explored that. She has been a great artist. She is a great artist. And with her art, she has gained a lot of power. And then where does that go? So that's what her soul is exploring. So hopefully you now have an idea of where to start with looking at your Pluto. Please comment and let me know if you're having any difficulty or what resonates with you, or how you're exploring this. If you've been able to explore it on two levels, you can see it at the deeper theme of your life, the vein running through, but also you can see it very tangibly in themes and events of your life as well. And yeah, feel free to comment with anything, and please consider liking and subscribing, especially if you don't want to miss out on the next installment in this series. Okay, see you next time.